What's up everybody? I'm Diana from Starker's Corsetry and welcome to part 8 of our Underbust corset sew-along. Today we are finally getting into cutting our corset fabrics. So if you are happy with your corset pattern and want to just get started with cutting out your fabric and getting your corset sewn, this is the one here to start with. This is going to be, again, a single layer underbust corset, and I'm not going to be using a waist tape for this. Now, I know that a lot of corsets have waist tapes. I have strong feelings about them, one being that it adds a little bit of bulk in an area where specifically you don't want bulk in your corset. And if you're using a really good corset fabric, a waist tape is a little bit redundant anyway. Also, it adds little lines where you can see underneath the corset fabric, and it just doesn't leave a very smooth line. That said, if you're doing a mesh corset, I do recommend it just for aesthetic purposes. I do think it looks really pretty under mesh corsets. You can do contrasting waist tapes, that looks really cool. And it also does help to stabilize the mesh a little bit more because it's not as strong as a brocade or a couture. So I'm curious, where are you guys from? I'm in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and right now it is the second day of spring, and it's a weird second day of spring, and if you're watching this from the future, we are just at the beginning of the COVID-19 social distancing project, and it's a little weird, man. Usually we'd have people out walking around enjoying the sun, but we are all instructed to just stay the heck at home right now and flatten the curve, as we're all saying these days. I hope you and your loved ones are doing well wherever you are, but leave me a comment below. Let me know where you guys are from. I'd love to hear. I know a lot of you are in Canada and have just joined me from the CAFTCAD group. So hey CAFTCAD family, what's up? Thanks for joining me. What are we going to need today? We are finally cutting out our corset fabric. So I hope that you've picked a really nice couture or brocade or something that's really strong and is a really good, standard corset fabric, because this is going to be a single layer corset. We want to make sure that you're making it out of something really strong and sturdy. As I've mentioned before, you can get any of these corset coutures, brocade fabrics from Canada. You can get them at Farthingales. You can get them in the UK at Vina Cava and So Curvy. And if there's other places that you guys get your corset making supplies, leave me a comment below. Let me know your favorite corset making supply place. Here's what I'm going to be using today. It is a purple and black spot brocade fabric. Look at that. It is absolutely so beautiful. This fabric is, oh my God, it's stunning. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous black fabric with this purple teeny tiny dot. And I got this at Vina Cava in the UK. They're still shipping right now. So your corset fabric, we are also gonna need your favorite scissors, your now corrected paper pattern, and I do hope you took the time to do our mock-up and correct your pattern so you'll have an absolutely perfectly fitting corset. We're going to need some fabric chalk. You can either use a wax chalk that's been sharpened or broken to a little sharp point here, or one of my favorite things is this mechanical chalk pencil. How cool is this guy? It's awesome for doing little detail lines, like tracing out corset patterns on your fabric, especially if you have a darker fabric. If you're going with a lighter fabric, use a really sharp pencil or just a mechanical pencil to trace around your fabric edges. If you have one of these notcher dudes here, use this. They're fantastic. We're going to be notching our waist points. If you don't, just notch with scissors, notch with chalk. We're also going to need fabric weights. Louie's back, so fabric weights. And of course, our tea. So what's the tea today? We've got, guess who? David's tea. I know. But this is toasted walnut, and this was one of the Halloween tins. How amazing. I love this. Thank you, David's Tea, for doing your Halloween stuff. If you're all set and have all of your materials ready, let's get cutting. We're going to make sure that our fabric, first of all, is free of any wrinkles or crinkles or anything odd. Please go ahead and iron your fabric so that everything is nice and flat. Next, we're going to take our pattern pieces. We will be using both our front and back plackets at this time as well. Make sure your selvages are matching. So if your fabric is perfectly true to grain. Place your first pattern piece. And of course, here's Louis again. We're using him. Now, we're gonna try to be as frugal with our fabric as we can. And if you do have one of these guys here, these chalk pencils, they are amazing. And do your best to just trace out very, very carefully right at the very edge of your pattern piece. We are also going to mark out just the waist points here. We don't necessarily need the ribs, high hips or low hips. Those were mostly fitting points for our mock-up and our fit. So we'll make sure that everything looks good there. Your second piece, some pattern pieces have it on the diagonal. If yours does, go ahead and use the diagonal grain. For mine, I do like to use the straight of grain, and this spot brocade is beautiful for making sure everything lines up and the waistline is absolutely true all the way across, because you can follow these little dashes all the way across. So place it as close to your previous line as possible, because we don't want to waste any fabric. And if there's any pattern that you need to match up, do your best to do that now. We're just going to be using a very simple fabric. We're not going to get into pattern matching in this video. I do have information on that available in my classes at Toronto Corset Academy. We address almost every time pattern matching. So very carefully tracing around. If you notice here, this has a marking for where the bone case tape is going to go. So mark in just a little bit inside where that's going to go. It's going to help us to place where our bone case tape is going to go. Make sure you've marked your waist notches and put it aside. Move on to the next. And there you have it. There's our 5 pieces with just enough room to fit our plackets. However, I do like to use a little bit extra room. I find sometimes plackets can be drafted just a little bit too narrow. So I do like to give them about, you know, an extra ½ inch just to be on the safe side. Once we've got everything nicely traced out, we're going to take Louis over here and cut out each corset panel very carefully. We're going to be cutting on the inside of this chalk line because the chalk was drawn on the outside of the pattern. We're going to want to cut on the inside of the pattern. And because we cut this on the fold, we're going to very carefully take our scissors. Now this spot brocade is very, very strong. It kind of stands on its own. We're just going to cut right down the center and put him to the side there. Same with the rest of our pattern pieces. Once each of your pattern pieces are cut out, place your patterns on top of them, and we're just going to make sure that everything is absolutely perfect and there's nothing hanging out of the sides. So we're going to line up our center front seam, stick bluey on there, and you can see that there's just about 1.5 millimeters extra hanging out of the side. A little millimeter here and there is going to lead to an ill-fitting corset later on. So we're just going to trim off all those little edges. Honestly, I care a lot less about the top and the bottom having little edges as much as I do the sides. So this one is pretty darn good. Let's check this guy. I like to line up just one of these to check. I like to line up one side to check the other. It's a little bit of stuff out of the side here. Corset making is all about absolute to the millimeter precision and a little bit of not precision, I guess. Precision where it counts, I guess. Okay, this pattern's good. Once your pattern pieces are all perfected and everything is matching up with exactly your pattern corrections, it's time to transfer the waist notches to the other side. So we make sure that our pattern pieces, again, are perfect. If you've got this little notcher guy, now's the time to use it. If not, you can just mark it with chalk or notch it with a pencil. Oh, and if you have markings for where your bone case channels are going, mark those in as well with your notcher or your pencil or your scissors. So you have a piece that ends up kind of like this with the bone case channel markings and your waist notches. These notches are all going inside of your seam allowance, so none of these are going to show through to your finished corset. There you have it. All of your pattern pieces are all notched. They're ready to go. And tomorrow we're going to get sewing. Thanks for joining me today, you guys. Tomorrow we're going to start sewing in our bone case tape. So make sure you have that. Let me know down below if you have any questions about the process so far, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye. Also makes a really super glasses holder too.